Summer vacation! Wait, what? We still have one more week of our summer session English 100 class left? Okay. It turns out we have two last assignments to complete before we can, at long last, shout out, summer vacation! If you're watching this last video for our class section of English 100, that most likely means you have recently turned in your research paper. That fourth essay was, by far, your most substantial assignment this summer, and you finished it at the end of the 5th week of our 6-week summer class. So, what are we going to do during the 6th week of English 100? Well, we'll start out by reading a couple last comics. The first of those two had such a powerful impact, it has been called the comic book that changed the world. This is Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story, which was written by Alfred Hassler and Benton Resnick and drawn by Cy Berry. This particular comic was published almost 70 years ago, back in 1957. If its cover looks familiar to you, it's because you've seen it before. On page 76 of March Book 1, which we read back in Module 3. Unlike March Book 1, you are not required to purchase your own copy of Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story this summer. With the assistance of our Cerritos College Library, I've been able to make an online version of Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story available to you and your classmates in this online class this summer. You'll find the link in the materials for Module 5. The second of the last two comics we'll read is much closer to us, not only in time, but also in space. Specifically, it is installed as a mural in Don Quixote Community Regional Park in Cerritos, which is only about 4 miles from the physical campus of Cerritos College. On the wall of the community center behind me is Together We Are Stronger, Stop Anti-Asian Hate, written and drawn by the contemporary California comics artist Mari Naomi. This mural was installed here in Don Quixote Community Regional Park back in 2021, about 2 months after an elderly Asian American resident was attacked in this area in an apparent hate crime. So, the word of the day is mural. Inspired by our analyses of both Together We Are Stronger, Stop Anti-Asian Hate, and Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story, we will then put together those last two assignments for English 100. A visual verbal argument that combines pictures and words to create a powerful appeal to your readers, as well as your reflection on the process of composing it. For your visual verbal argument this summer, you will create a comic. For your comic, your goal is to combine words with pictures to make an argument to persuade your readers to take one of the actions you suggested in Section 6 of your research paper for English 100. That is, it should help persuade them to take an action that would at least start to move our society in the direction of the utopia you imagine. Ideally, it would encourage your readers to work with one of the potential partners, for example, a nonprofit organization you identified in Section 6 in order to take that action. You've already read a couple comics earlier this summer, and you'll be reading 2 more, Together We Are Stronger, Stop Anti-Asian Hate, and Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story for Module 5. So those are meant to serve as your professional examples of comics. I've also provided a couple of decidedly amateur examples of my own. A 6-panel comic called Oppose Censorship of LGBTQIA+ Authors' Books, as well as a multiple-page comic called Who Will Be the Blue Butterfly. These are meant to persuade readers to take an action that would at least start to move our society in the direction of 2 utopias that I've imagined. For example, a utopia of nature that I imagine is a future version of Los Angeles County in which residents are much more likely to see Palos Verdes blue butterflies, a species so rare it was thought to have gone extinct back in the 1980s before being rediscovered in the 90s. The action I would like the visual verbal argument in my comic, Who Will Be the Blue Butterfly, to convince readers to take is to help restore the native plants that the endangered blue butterflies depend on, ideally by working with a local nonprofit such as the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. So, you'll find my amateur examples along with the professional examples in the materials for Module 5. So, how do you get started with these last 2 assignments for English 100? First, read the prompt for your visual verbal argument and your reflection. Next, work your way through the content section of the module, which includes a single lesson and multiple examples. Third, share your visual verbal argument and your reflection with your classmates by posting them to our last discussion thread for English 100. The official due date for your post is 11:59 p.m. this Thursday, July 25th. Unofficially, however, you will be able to post as late as, or as early as, 11:59 a.m. this Friday, July 26th. Finally, you should shout out summer vacation and enjoy about 3 weeks off before our fall semester at Cerritos College starts the week of August 19th. Okay. That final task, shouting out summer vacation, is not required, but I highly recommend it.